America faces a new fiscal crisis and has little time to solve it. If Congress takes no action before January 1st, the U.S. economy will be hit by about $600 billion in tax increases and government spending cuts next year, a prospect that is known as the fiscal cliff. The result would be a contraction worth up to 4% of gross domestic product, enough to tip the U.S. back into recession in the first half of 2013. This has caused alarm in the U.S. and around the world. The U.S. election on November 6 cemented the status quo of divided government in Washington, with the Democrats controlling the White House and the Senate and a Republican majority in the House of Representatives. This has been a recipe for gridlock on fiscal policy for the past 2 years, though President Obama and the congressional leaders of both parties have vowed to strive for a deal in the coming weeks. If they fail, the U.S. economy could be deeply damaged. Output would shrink at a rate of 2.9% in the first half of the year if the country plunges off the cliff, and then rebound with growth of 1.9% in the second half of 2013, according to the Congressional Budget Office, the nonpartisan agency that assesses the budgetary implications of legislation. Throughout 2013, the U.S. economy would contract by 0.5% under this scenario. The biggest element of the fiscal cliff is the end of Bush-era tax cuts, worth about $300 billion in 2013. These were originally passed in 2001 and 2003 and extended for 2 years in 2010. Republicans want to extend them for 1 more year, while Democrats want to end the tax cuts for the richest Americans. Failure to reach a deal on this portion of the fiscal cliff would result in an immediate increase in income taxes and higher tax rates on investment income, such as capital gains and dividends. In addition, a series of temporary tax breaks are set to end on December 31st. The largest is a 2 percentage point reduction in the payroll tax that funds Social Security pension schemes. For months, both parties assumed the payroll tax cut, worth $120 billion per year, would be allowed to lapse as a sacrificial lamb to reduce the deficit. But Democrats in particular have grown concerned that this would disproportionately hit poorer Americans. Finally, many corporate tax breaks, such as those benefiting renewable energy companies, are scheduled to expire. In addition to possible tax increases, the second aspect of the fiscal cliff is more than $100 billion in annual cuts to government spending, of which half will come from the defense budget. Neither party favors these so-called automatic cuts. They were passed into law to avert default in August 2011, but were expected to be replaced before taking effect. But the bipartisan supercommittee of 12 lawmakers charged with finding other deficit reduction measures failed to agree, leaving the automatic cuts in place. These cuts would affect businesses whose fortunes are closely tied to federal spending, particularly defense contractors and the healthcare sector. None of this may come to pass, and in Washington, many expect a last-minute agreement to avert the fiscal cliff. But American politicians have a poor track record on fiscal compromise. In August 2011, budgetary brinkmanship led the U.S. to the verge of a default on its debt and the first ever downgrade of its AAA credit rating. Once again, everyone is holding their breath. From Washington, this is James Politi with the Financial Times.